Well, look, we all want the kids to read well, learn fast, pick it up quickly, but that's not always the case. So we've got some ways here now to help your kids reading at home, some tips for parents to help improve child literacy. And Dr. Marsha Spitzer is here this morning, pediatrician here in San Diego and with the San Diego chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Now, you also work with this program, Reach Out to Read.
Reach Out and Read.
Reach Out and Read. Okay, tell me about that first off, and then we'll get into the specifics.
Sure. Well, Reach Out and Read is a program that's over 20 years old. It was started in Boston by a group of pediatricians at a lower-income clinic and a city hospital who started putting used books in their waiting room. And what they discovered is every day the used books would disappear. And instead of taking that as, oh, gee, our books are disappearing, they turned it around and said, there must be a need in this community to provide more books in homes of these children. And so the way the project works is here in San Diego we have 73 clinics, including the ones I work in, where we have a literacy-rich waiting area. I have used books in my shelves that also go as fast as the old Boston ones did. And I give a new book to every child who comes for their well child visit between 6 months and 5 years of age. And then I talk to the family about how to use that book at home.
Oh, that's fantastic. So it's an extra effort on top of the rest of your duties as a pediatrician then.
Right, and it's one of the funnest things we do, because when you think about it, when you bring your own children in for a 1-year-old or a 1.5 or 2-year-old visit, there's shots and there's blood tests. There's a lot of things we do that maybe your child isn't so happy to see.
Not crazy about, yeah.
Right, so to be able to give a book and talk about reading, not only it feels good as the pediatrician, it makes the family happy, and it shows that not only are educators focused on how important early literacy is, but we in the health community are as well.
Now, you're also able to really kind of help folks understand the books that are appropriate at particular ages and developmentally what they should be looking for in their kids.
Correct.
So when do you start reading to them?
No, it's a good question. I mean, so many of the studies show 90% of our brain growth is in the first 5 years of life. So those first 5 years are the most important ones to read in, starting at birth. But that's not to say that at 5 we stop reading either.
Right, right.
But I encourage families to start reading as early as they can manage it into their routine. Obviously those first few weeks you're home from the hospital, it's a little chaotic and crazy,
right.
But as soon as you can after that, and certainly by age 6 months, which is when the Reach Out and Read program starts, children are old enough to be able to sit in a parent's lap, to be able to hold a book, to be able to put a book in their mouth, and to be able to enjoy the bonding experience with mom and dad, even though they're clearly not going to start talking quite yet.
But it's all about bonding,
right?
And the reading and the hearing the spoken word and seeing
Correct.
the page and so forth. When do they actually start recognizing images and start responding to what you're reading?
That's a good question. I'll show you with one of our books here. I mean, this is the sort of book, Farm Animals, that might be attractive to a child up through about age 2. You can see it's a board book.
Right.
It's plastic
nice
coated.
and sturdy.
It's sturdy. It can be put in the mouth. And I always tell parents, when I hand this book to a 6 or an 8-month-old, they're going to grab it, and the first thing they're going to do is head to the mouth. And I say, that's okay. This is how children learn things at this age.
This
They're
book is
very
made
tactile.
for that.
Right, it's made for this. And these books, we give out books that are very simple at this age. So you can see, this book only has 1 or 2 words on each page. It has different animal sounds. These are things almost all parents can do. Doesn't matter what language you speak. It doesn't matter how well your own literacy skills are, or how good your own literacy skills are, or how comfortable you are with reading. You can read this book without even really knowing what these words mean. You can just name what the pictures are and give the sounds. And they're colorful, they're pretty, and there's not too much on each page, so it's going to grab a child's attention.
So you start with that. Now, we talked about Dr. Seuss here a little while ago.
Correct.
And that seems to combine all of these elements, these classic elements of sight and sound and perceptions and so forth, and rhyming and what was your favorite Dr. Seuss book?
I was a fan of Green Eggs and Ham. So that was one of my favorites.
I cannot eat them, Sam, I am.
And I was just going to say, a kid, a slightly older child, like a 18, 24-month-old, can do exactly what you just did. Even though they can't read the words yet, they can memorize, and they sense the pattern, that it's a rhyming pattern.
Right.
So they can finish a sentence, and oftentimes a child that age, you'll be reading a Dr. Seuss book, and if you mess up one of those lines, they'll go back and correct you because they remember that they've been read to and they know that story.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember that, you know, with my kids and thinking, oh my gosh, they're reading. Well, they may not have been reading yet, but they were close at that point. It's amazing to me how early kids can learn to read. Now, my daughter was in a kindergarten class where by the end of 2 weeks, Sigrid Civilian was her name, back in Dunwoody, Georgia. She had them reading, really reading, not faking it, but reading. Is that unusual?
You know, it can be, and a lot of it depends on how many words children are exposed to. And that's sort of the whole point of Reach Out and Read. Many studies that now show the more words a child is exposed to, especially the spoken word, because they're not reading yet, so it's the oral or the spoken words. The more words you're exposed to, the faster you learn sound recognition. You start to put those letters that you see on pages with the sound. And you think about even a lot of the books we read with kids that are 1 or age 2 will have like an alphabet book. You know, D is for dog, C is for car. And when you read that, you say C is for car, and you're putting the emphasis on that C. So your child may not be reading yet, but if they see the C on the page and they hear you do that k sound, then they're going to see a car at some point and see that C-A-R, and they're going to start to put those two together.
And put those things together. It's Dr. Marsha Spitzer. It's Reach Out and Read San Diego. And if folks want more information, if they want a little bit of help with this, what do they do? Sure.
So our website is www.rorsd.org, and we're part of the local chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. So you can also go to the AAP and look for our chapter website as well.
Fantastic. Hey, thank you so much.
Thanks.
It's fun. We'll go over and read some Dr. Seuss now.
Sounds good.
Okay.